wanting to justify himself, the lawyer asks, "Who is my neighbor?" Now, is this an earnest question, or is it one that's more of like a defense or a deflection? It can be tough to tell when you're just reading it off the page, but with how the first question is set up as a test, there's a sense to this one being a bit of a leading question. So yeah, this is possibly a way for the lawyer to defend himself or like his current lifestyle or, position within the community. I mean, he knows the answer to the first question, right? He gives the correct expert answer. But he wants to justify himself, to be seen, or maybe to be acknowledged as being correct, righteous, just. Maybe just wants to be told that he's doing everything right. Good job, continue on your way. There's a sense of that here too. Someone reminded me this week of kind of that list of rules that we maybe had by the door or up front in our classrooms in elementary school, right? Listen, don't talk while the teacher's talking, do your work, don't run, write your name on your paper, and so on. And if you do all these things right, what do you get? Like a gold star or some sort of award or something like that. Is that maybe what this guy's looking for? The pat on the back, the reward? Well, Jesus answers the question, but the answer isn't one of these like rule type answers, is it? It's an answer that actually invites us in to kind of think about this. Jesus kind of says, hey, school's out now, and you still have to know what to do. So let's think about this very plausible situation, one that could actually happen. A man traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho falls into the hands of robbers. What do you do? We're not in the classroom anymore. Parables invite you into the whole story to kind of set yourself down into the situation and look around. What do you see or understand about this road? It's dangerous, first of all, yeah. There are robbers, thieves on the road. But there are also a lot of other people, and a lot of different people, right? A priest and a Levite are also on this road, and this traveler, and the Samaritan who actually stops and helps. In the end, Jesus asks about who was a neighbor to the person attacked, right? And who was the neighbor? The one who showed him mercy. The person who fixed the situation. How do we fix the situation? I'll help the person, as the Samaritan does. And maybe see if there's a way to make sure there's not another person on the side of the road there tomorrow. I mean, this is a parable, so let's take a look around. And remember, we're not in the classroom anymore. What if this conversation had continued? What would that next part of the discussion be? I mean, we see and hear the good news for the man, but what about the good news for everyone? The good news for all? Or even better news for the man on the side of the road, right? Because the good news for this person is that someone stops to help. Better news would be to not encounter the thieves in the first place, to not have to be afraid or on guard if you needed to travel somewhere. A lot of people need to use this road, and they do, despite the danger, the thieves. But why are there thieves on the road? Because the story needs bad guys. Okay, yes. But this is a scenario that is probably very close to reality too, right? Then and now. A very possible situation. Why are there robbers on the road? Why do they need to steal? What is it that's missing in the world that isn't being fulfilled elsewhere, that this needs to be their choice? I mean, it's also interesting to think about what would have been the good news for them. or the priest or the Levite. I mean, why don't they stop? We don't know, but they didn't. I mean, they could have been afraid themselves, and then we're back to that better news of not encountering the thieves in the first place. They could have been off to help someone else or some other urgent something. They could be worried it's a trap. Lots of things, you know. But who was a neighbor to this person on the side of the road? And what happened to that original question? You know, the one that is going to tell us how to justify ourselves. Suddenly, it doesn't sound like we're talking about that anymore. Or at least, not in the same way. Justifying ourselves. What if that's not how it works? What if justification is something Jesus does, and that's already going to be done, right? Saved by grace through faith. So the question is redirected a bit. How do we read and react to this story now? Where do we see this story in our world? Remember, we're not in the classroom anymore. This is one of those famous Bible stories, right? Anyone can read it. Anyone can hear the phrase Good Samaritan. And even if they don't know it, right away, context clues, are going to let them know that this is, praise or a standard, to aspire to. And they can go look up the origin. They'll know it's a Christian story, a New Testament story told by Jesus himself. How are we, as Christians, hearing and internalizing this story, writing it on our hearts and minds, applying the lessons to the real, messy, nuanced, confusing world? Love your neighbor as yourself. We've been talking about that phrase for a few weeks in the letter to the Galatians, maybe even thinking about what that means for us in our world. Love your neighbor as yourself. Who is my neighbor? What's my real question? Wanting to justify ourselves? Jesus answers. The answer is school's out. We're not in the classroom anymore. This isn't about gold stars. It's about life. It's time to go out into the world. And in that world, there was this person going from Jerusalem to Jericho.